Okay, so I want you to picture something with me. You're driving past a new construction site. Maybe it's a big housing development.
Right. Or a highway interchange getting a facelift.
Exactly. And you see all the heavy equipment, but then you see the green. Just stacks and stacks of it.
Potted plants. Hundreds, maybe thousands of them all lined up.
Yes, all perfectly identical. It's like a factory assembly line, but for shrubs and trees.
It really does stop you in your tracks. And, immediately, those plants are not coming from the little neighborhood nursery where you go on a Saturday.
No way. And that's exactly what our source material dug into. It sparks this immediate question. If that local nursery can't possibly supply a whole housing estate, where in the world does this massive amount of plant stock come from?
And that's the mission for our deep dive today.
Uh-huh.
We're going to pull back the curtain on this hidden plant economy. First, we need to understand the logistics of that huge wholesale system.
The industrial side of things.
Exactly. And then we're going to contrast it with the surprisingly different economics of the small retail plant shops.
So we're basically going to show you how your world gets greened, from the bushes on the side of the highway to that one special plant on your windowsill, and why both the mega grower and the tiny local florist can both be really, really profitable, even though their businesses are, complete opposites.
It's a tale of two parallel plant economies.
Okay, so let's unpack this logistical behemoth. We're talking about tens of thousands of plants for a single project. That's not a nursery. That's more like a distribution hub.
It is. They're turning to what are called dedicated wholesale growers, or sometimes contract growers.
Okay.
Think of them like a massive auto parts supplier, but for the agricultural world. Their whole model is built on consistency, on uniformity, and just having the sheer capacity to stock huge numbers of the same thing.
So they're not there for the casual shopper.
Not at all. It's purely B2B, business-to-business orders, fast and large.
So their focus isn't on creating a beautiful, diverse shopping experience. It's all about logistical efficiency.
100%. And that right there dictates where they're located.
Yeah.
Our sources pointed out that this kind of bulk sourcing tends to happen way outside the big city.
Right. The source mentioned areas outside the Klang Valley, like in the eastern and southern regions.
Exactly. And that's not an accident. It's pure economics. You need hundreds of acres for that kind of operation, and you just can't afford that kind of land anywhere near a dense urban area.
So the plants themselves are actually being imported, in a way, into the metro area for these big projects. That adds a whole new layer of complexity, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, you're talking transportation, logistics,
Yeah.
maybe even cold chain storage for some things.
Wow.
And everything has to be standardized to minimize loss. The plants are grown in specific container sizes, 3-gallon, 5-gallon, so they stack perfectly on a truck.
And they're probably not delicate, exotic flowers.
Oh, definitely not. They're sturdy, common plants. Things like hedges, hardy ground covers, fast-growing trees, stuff that can handle a long truck ride and the shock of being planted by a big crew.
And their client list.
Yeah,
It's got to be more than just that one housing developer we imagined at the start.
that's right. The clientele is basically anyone who needs a ton of standardized plants. So you have the big ones, landscapers and property developers for commercial parks, housing estates, that kind of thing.
Yep.
But also florists who need bulk greenery or common flowers, and the big mass retailers like your hardware stores and big box stores that have a garden section.
And I'm guessing the government, cities, municipalities.
That's a huge one. And that's where this idea of contract growing you mentioned becomes so important.
Tell me more about that.
Well, a city might know they need, say, 5,000 specific shrubs for a new park you're building next year. They won't just hope a nursery has them.
They plan ahead.
They'll sign a contract with a wholesale grower months, maybe a full year in advance. The grower is guaranteed the sale, which is great for them, and the city is guaranteed they'll get the exact plants they need at the right size, right on schedule.
So the wholesale business model is really about managing risk through huge volumes and these guaranteed contracts.
You've got it. They focus on these massive, infrequent projects.
It's the whole logistical backbone of how we build green spaces.
It is. It's all about uniformity and scale. But, and here's the real kicker, it's usually optimized for cost, not for profit on each individual plant. They move a ton of product, but for a pretty small margin on each one.
Which brings us to the big economic twist.
Exactly.
So here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because you look at the financials and all that volume, all those truckloads of identical plants, that doesn't actually translate to the highest profit per plant. Our sources found that retail plant sales, they have significantly higher growth profit margins.
Yeah, that's the finding that feels so counterintuitive at first. But it makes perfect sense once you break down the type of demand and what the sources call the species factor.
The species factor.
Right. A grower selling 10,000 common bushes for a highway median is competing on price. They have to give a huge bulk discount. Their entire profit comes from the sheer volume and how efficiently they can grow things.
So let's break that down, the economics of the specific plants themselves.
Okay, so think about the wholesale side again. They're dealing in the staples. Common, tough, fast-growing stuff. Leyland cypress for privacy screens, basic ivy for ground cover, things like that.
The workhorses of the plant world.
Well, workhorses, exactly. They're easy to grow in massive numbers, so the cost per plant is super low. But that means the price they can sell it for is also very low.
So the developer is maybe buying a plant for $2 that costs the grower 50 cents to produce, but they're buying 10,000 of them. It's a huge revenue number, but a tiny margin.
Precisely. And those giant sales are infrequent. A grower might have these massive revenue spikes, twice a year when a big project pays out. But their overhead is enormous. The land, the equipment, the water, they live and die by those big contracts.
Okay, now, let's pivot. Contrast that with the neighborhood retail nursery, the little local shop.
They can't possibly compete on volume, so they don't even try. They compete on value, on specialization.
And they capture a different kind of demand.
A totally different kind. Retail captures continuous demand. It's driven by aesthetic desire, not by an infrastructure contract. People aren't buying 1,000 of anything. They're buying one or two unique, ornamental, or maybe even rare plants.
So we're moving from the basic cypress hedge to, I don't know, a variegated monstera or a special hybrid orchid.
Yes, and when you buy that orchid, you're paying for so much more than just the plant. You're paying for the specialized knowledge of the staff, the rarity of the item, the curated experience of the shop.
That's where the margin comes from.
That's a huge part of it. The gross margin is higher for a few key reasons.
Yeah.
One, like you said, is scarcity. A plant that's hard to grow or takes years to mature costs more.
Makes sense.
Two is the perceived value, the advice, the perfect potting mix, the beautiful pot it comes in. That all adds value. And three, which is critical, the retail price has to cover higher risks.
What kind of risks?
Rent for a storefront, higher labor costs for staff to constantly tend to the plants, and just inventory loss. Some delicate plants will die before they're sold. That cost has to be baked into the price of the ones that do sell.
That makes perfect sense. The wholesale plant is grown to survive a forklift.
Right.
The retail plant is curated to look beautiful in your living room, so higher risk, but a much higher aesthetic markup.
And beyond that, retail benefits from demand that is, let's call it time sensitive. The source has really highlighted this. There's the continuous demand from home gardeners, of course. But the real profit spikes come from festive seasons and religious events.
Ah, the seasonal demand. That must be a gold mine.
It's the absolute bedrock of their profitability model. The wholesale grower is waiting on the next big construction bid. The retail shop knows, like clockwork, that every single year there will be a huge, urgent demand for very specific plants.
Like poinsettias at Christmas, or certain flowers for Lunar New Year.
Exactly. Or specific blooms for a religious ceremony. And that urgency makes people way less sensitive to the price.
Right. If you need that specific holiday plant for a gift tonight, you're not going to spend 3 hours driving around to save $2.
You're going to pay the premium.
Yeah.
And that premium goes directly to the retailer's margin. So it really paints the picture of the trade-off, doesn't it? Wholesale is about massive, infrequent transactions of low-margin common goods.
And retail is about continuous, smaller transactions of high-margin, specialized goods.
The wholesaler is selling a utility, a functional green commodity. The retailer is selling desire, beauty, and an emotional connection.
It's fascinating. They're both selling plants, but they're not even in the same business, really.
That's the perfect way to put it. The whole industry runs on these twin engines. One is built for logistical volume to support our infrastructure. The other's fine-tuned to capture specialized value from consumer desire. And you need both to make the world around us look the way it does.
So we started this whole deep dive with that image, that sort of visual shock of seeing plants treated like industrial parts on a construction site. We followed that chain back to these huge regional wholesale growers, and now we get it. That kind of scale can only be met by an economy that's built for scale.
Right. And then we saw the twist.
Yeah.
That while the wholesale world moves these massive volumes of common plants for low margins, the retail side actually thrives. It sustains itself by capturing that steady, reliable, high-margin stream of consumer spending on unique and time-sensitive plants.
One system is built on pallets and contracts, the other on personal taste and holiday demand.
And that leads us to our final thought for you to take away. The next time you're out and you see a big, uniform municipal planting, a median strip filled with hundreds of the exact same bush, just ask yourself, how far did those plants have to travel to get here? What kind of massive system was needed?
And then later, when you're in a little shop and you pick up a single, beautiful, unique houseplant, think about the completely different supply chain and the very different profit motive that brought that one special high-value plant into your hands.
The hidden economics are all around us. They literally shape the landscape we live in.